Being around an INFJ can feel like being on a mind-altering substance. Not because they intoxicate in the traditional sense, but because their presence tends to bend the usual rules of emotional and psychological gravity. There's something about how they engage with you. Intensely focused, deeply empathetic, and yet just elusive enough to stir a sense of mystery that keeps you coming back for more. INFJs don't just listen to you, they absorb you. Conversations with them often feel like stepping into a lucid dream where your thoughts, fears, and hopes are not only heard, but understood before you articulate them. That kind of emotional accuracy is disarming. It breaks down your defenses in a way that mimics the euphoric openness one might experience on certain substances. You find yourself saying things you didn't even know you want to say. Their energy often feels enveloping, like a warm current you didn't realize you were caught in until you've already drifted miles from shore. It's not just that they make you feel seen, it's that they make you feel felt. There's a rare kind of spiritual intimacy in their attention that bypasses the rational mind. You may walk away from a conversation with an INFJ and hours later realize you're still thinking about what they said, or more strangely, how they made you feel. Check out our newly released INFJ Playbook. The link is in the description of this video. INFJs are paradoxical. They radiate a quiet, magnetic confidence mixed with a softness that disarms cynicism. They can feel like soul mirrors, reflecting back your truest self, even the parts you hide from yourself, with gentle, almost eerie accuracy. And just when you think you've figured them out, they slip back into their inner sanctum, leaving you in a fog of curiosity and longing. This withdrawal can mimic the come down after a high, that ache for a feeling you don't know how to name, but desperately want to experience again. Time distorts around them. Hours can pass unnoticed in their company, and even a short conversation can leave a lasting emotional residue. You may find yourself chasing their presence, not out of infatuation in the traditional sense, but because they connect with you on a level most people don't even acknowledge. It's a form of emotional intimacy that feels so real and rare. It can leave you questioning the authenticity of all your other connections. Like the most powerful highs, they open a door in you, a door you didn't know was locked, and once opened, you can't pretend you haven't seen what's behind it. Their inner world is dense and layered. If they let you in, even briefly, it's disorienting in the most beautiful way. You sense the immensity of what they feel, what they know, and how they interpret the world. Being in that atmosphere, even for a short time, is like stepping into a reality where intuition is currency and empathy is the language. It can alter your perception of relationships, purpose, and even yourself. INFJs are addictive not because they try to be, but because their authenticity is rare, their insight is sharp, and their energy taps into something primal and often neglected, the desire to be wholly understood. Being around them can feel like having your emotional frequency tuned to something higher and more intense than you're used to. It's not always comfortable, but it's never forgettable. Like a powerful drug, they show you an altered version of reality, and you're never quite the same after. The deeper you go with an INFJ, the more surreal the experience becomes. They aren't just emotionally intelligent. They move through the world like they're tuned to a frequency most people can't hear. Being close to one is like standing near a speaker playing a song only you and they can understand. Their words aren't always loud, but they reverberate in you. They carry weight, not because they try to be profound, but because they mean everything they say. There's also this strange temporal quality to being around them, as if you're suspended between dimensions. You may be talking about something simple, your day, your plans, a childhood memory, and suddenly, without warning, they draw out the deeper layers beneath the surface. You thought you were talking about a movie, but somehow the conversation has unfolded your hidden fears about failure or your quiet longing for connection. It's jarring in the way psychedelics are jarring. Not because it's scary, but because it's true, and truth is often something we avoid until it's presented so gently, so precisely, that we can't help but confront it. What's more disorienting is their ability to mirror you without ego. They don't compete for attention, they don't dominate, and yet they subtly shape the emotional climate of a space. Like a psychoactive substance, they don't scream for your focus, They simply alter the entire atmosphere until you realize the air has changed and your thoughts don't quite move the same way. They see patterns in your story that you've missed for years. They link moments you thought were unrelated, and then they reflect it back to you, not as criticism, but as insight, like a vision in the midst of a high. The realization doesn't just help you see, it helps you feel what needs to shift inside you. But they are not always present in a linear way. Their minds exist in layers. There's the INFJ you're speaking to, and then there's the INFJ thinking 10 steps ahead, processing your energy, predicting the emotional consequences of your words, and remembering something you said weeks ago that you forgot. It's a kind of mental multidimensionality that feels impossible to fully grasp, and yet being close to them gives you a fleeting sense that you could understand it if you just stayed near them long enough. That's what makes the experience addictive, not just the intensity, but the promise of deeper understanding that always feels just out of reach. When they care about you, you feel it not as affection, but as a force. They love in a way that feels alchemical, part healing, part unraveling. You're not just liked or appreciated. You're studied, known, and held in a kind of reverence that makes you want to become the person they believe you could be. And yet, this isn't a one-way exchange. The deeper you feel drawn in, the more you begin to sense that they're holding something back, something vast, almost mythic. They guard parts of themselves like sacred relics, and that hiddenness becomes its own form of intoxication. You want to find the door to those inner rooms, even if you suspect you'll never fully get inside. When they withdraw, the silence is deafening. The absence of their energy can be more noticeable than the presence of most people. It leaves you unsettled, like a fading trip that once made the world sharp and colorful, but now leaves you blinking in dull light. You wonder if you imagine the depth. You question your sanity. That emotional high they gave you feels so vivid, so alive. How could something that powerful be gone? And yet that's part of their spell. They enter and exit your life with the quiet precision of a lucid dream, making you unsure if they were ever fully there at all. INFJs don't provide escapism in the way drugs do. They don't help you flee reality. They expand it. They stretch your emotional and intellectual awareness in ways that feel almost cosmic. You begin to notice nuance in everything. You feel more deeply. You speak more thoughtfully. You sense things more acutely. They don't just shift your mood. They shift your state of consciousness. And in that altered state, the world feels more alive, more interconnected, more sacred. There's something surreal about how INFJs make the ordinary feel mythic. A simple conversation about the weather can spiral, effortlessly, into a revelation about human nature, your upbringing, or the interconnectedness of all things. You start to feel like you're in a lucid fever dream, a hyper-aware state where nothing is exactly what it seems, and yet everything is more true than it's ever felt before. It's not because they force anything on you. Quite the opposite. INFJs invite you in. They guide you, not with loud voices or bright lights, but with the quiet gravity of someone who knows something you don't, and won't tell you outright, because they know the real lesson is found in your own arrival. There's an intoxicating tension in how they mix intensity with restraint. They look at you like they can see everything, the cracks, the chaos, the beauty you hide under jokes and armor, and instead of recoiling, they lean in. They don't flinch. They hold space for your contradictions with such gentleness, such unwavering presence, that you begin to soften. You begin to trust. And that trust, when it's mirrored back with their deep, unwavering attention, feels like nothing short of a chemical high. It's emotional clarity meets spiritual vertigo. The more you're with them, the more the boundaries between you begin to dissolve, not in an enmeshed way, but in a way that feels like remembering something ancient, something you didn't know you forgot. You start to crave the connection, not because they flatter you or perform affection, but because they anchor you in a version of yourself that feels both more honest and more expansive. It's as if you've been living underwater, and their presence is the first clean inhale of oxygen. That momentary clarity they offer, a flash of insight, a perfectly timed question, an unexpected moment of silence that speaks louder than words, sticks with you. It doesn't wear off the way normal interactions do. It lingers in the bloodstream of your psyche, a slow-release substance that keeps waking you up long after they're gone. But INFJs are not always easy highs. Sometimes being around them is like taking a psychedelic that shows you the parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding. They won't always comfort. They won't always agree. But their descent is never petty. It's crafted, intentional, rooted in care that runs deeper than approval. They will challenge you with a kind of surgical compassion. They'll ask the question you didn't want asked. They'll hold a mirror when you'd rather look away. And still, it doesn't feel like judgment. It feels like elevation. They don't want you to be comfortable. They want you to be whole. And if that requires a little disorientation, a little unraveling, they'll walk beside you as you come undone. Being with an INFJ in their full, unguarded state is rare. They are private ecosystems. And when they open the gates, even slightly, you know you're witnessing something sacred. That sacredness is addictive. You want to earn it again. You want to prove you're worthy of another glimpse into that sanctuary of thought, intuition, and emotional intelligence. You want to return to the mental forest where they first led you, even if it means getting a little lost again. Being around an INFJ is like a slow, soul-deep intoxication that doesn't just change your mood, it reconfigures your internal landscape. They're not flashy or chaotic like some wild, euphoric high. They're the quiet kind, the kind that creeps up on you slowly, gradually, until you realize that your entire perception of connection, of depth, of what it means to be seen, has been permanently altered. It's not just a feeling you get when you're around them. It's a shift, a tremor in your emotional foundation that continues to echo long after they've walked away. Their insight isn't loud, but it cuts deep. You'll be mid-sentence, and suddenly they'll offer one small, casual comment that completely unravels something you've kept tied up for years. You didn't even know you were hiding that part of yourself until they found it. They expose without aggression. They heal without announcing it. Their wisdom doesn't come from logic or debate. It comes from an intuitive knowing that seems to bypass all the layers of ego and performance that most people operate behind. You feel stripped bare in front of them, but instead of shame, there's a strange sense of relief. Like someone finally sees through the static and recognizes the signal underneath. For all the connection they create, INFJs are rarely fully reachable. There's always a part of them, just out of sight. You'll feel like you're getting closer, and then suddenly they pull back into themselves, disappearing into some private inner world you're not allowed to enter. It's not cruelty, it's protection. They need space to process, to recharge, to breathe in a world that often overwhelms them with its chaos and insincerity. But their retreat can feel like withdrawal. You're left disoriented, a little hollow, wondering if you imagine the depth, wondering if you said too much, felt too much, hoped for too much. Check out our newly released INFJ Playbook. The link is in the description of this video.